everybody. Welcome to the big numero dos episode of The Low with Lolo. It's been about a month. I'm sure none of you have noticed, but I have noticed. I did my first episode and then my life just got so crazy. It got so crazy. And then today I decided to look back at my first episode to just refresh my memory. And I was talking about trying to live authentically so I could attract the things meant for me. And yeah, the last May, June, July, I did that in May, it's July now. And the last 3 months, that is exactly what happened. And I can't, sometimes I still can't even wrap my head around it. I left a job, got with a job that didn't fit, and now I'm back at something that fits super well. I'm super fucking stoked. I've been wanting to do this podcast, but deciding to do it and putting out my first video caused me to be way more introspective than I was expecting to be. I got really in my head about how I want to present myself, how I want to do this, what should I start with, and I started getting stuck. But yeah, I started with just checking out my first episode. And it ended up being a little more serious than I wanted it to be. Honestly, I'm trying to have a more funny vibe to this, but there is a level of stage fright that I honestly still battle. So, but I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to build myself in front of you guys, because I don't run off of a script, and I feel like if I did, that would actually make it worse. So you're just gonna deal with me being pretty raw. Eventually, I would like to have some friends on here and just people to yap with, because I feel like my friends are fucking hilarious. And I have some of my best one-liners when I'm just fucking around with my friends, I feel like I come up with my best ideas when I'm not on camera. Duh. But yeah, I'm back. Today's episode, you're going to get the lore of Low. You're gonna get the low on Lolo, my background, where I came from, and a little more insight to why I've decided to do this. Yeah, I think in my first episode, I barely mentioned that I was born in Kansas, right outside of Kansas City. I grew up in the same neighborhood, I think from ages 4 to 20, 21. Same area, same house, same school district with the same people. And I feel like for a lot of people that moved around when they were younger, that's the dream. I will say that where I grew up was very safe, suburban area, I hate saying it, but I'll say it, whitewashed suburban area. Very blessed, to be able to be outside with my friends any time of day, basically. Home life, we had a great home. A little bit of hostility in the environment. So from a young age, I was very sensitive to that, I think. So I was either alone or outside as much as possible. I was the kid that was always outside. In elementary school, I was always friends with the dudes. I had 5 homies that we would run around, cause a ruckus, ride bicycles, get dirty. And yeah, but I was always a tomboy. Back in the day, it was just you're just a fucking tomboy, rough and tumble, Middle school, I was always the kid. Even when I was younger, middle school, I was always the funny friend. I loved entertaining people. Even when I was younger at family gatherings, I'd be hanging out with the adults, and they would always try to scoot me to the kids, and I'd be like, no, this is where it's at. This shit's my jam, and getting to make adults laugh was just the best. And then yeah, middle school, I would say I was the goofball friend for sure. Ugly duckling, not the cool kid, okay? I had to be funny. And 7th grade, I was a cheerleader. I loved that shit. I always had a lot of energy. I actually liked the physical aspect of it. I might have been the only one that actually appreciated the physical aspect of it. But even then, I was not the cool kid. I was not the cool cheerleader. I was the one on the squad that no one really talked to, and there might have been like one other, you know, for lack of a better term, like weird girl. And I want to say her name, but I'm on the fence about like throwing names right now. Even if I haven't seen them, they might not see it. But shout out to her. And it's just that classic movie scenario where we had a competition and I got the flying, you know, I was the flyer for the competition, and I go to the bathroom, I'm in the stall hearing girls talk shit, you know. I was also in theater. The next year I didn't make it to cheerleading, so I went into theater, and I went from being a cheerleader in 7th grade to playing Helen Keller in a play in 8th grade. Yes, you heard that correctly. Helen Keller. I didn't have any lines except for one fucking grunt, okay? I can't believe I am saying that to the public. Yeah, and then my group of homeboys I had in like middle school and high school were very grungy punk rock star guys. Don't know if you guys remember Bam Margera on TV, but my nickname was Vito. Vito! They would fucking shout it at the halls, Vito! And I always felt like a chubby kid, so that shit fucked me up, dudes. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons I always put myself in the friend zone. I was always just one of the dudes. My dad had a drum set. We would hang out. They would use my drum set to practice. I was in a band. I was the singer. So yeah, I was always a pretty theatrical, energetic human. And then in high school, it was a very large high school. I was not ready for it. And I feel like the best way to put it is I got fucking stage fright. I stopped. I didn't go out for cheerleading. I didn't go out for theater. Even though both my mentors and those in middle school told me to like absolutely keep doing those things because I was fantastic. I was the golden child. I was like A's and B's, extracurriculars. Teachers always bragged about me. I loved going to tell my grandma how well I was doing. That was like a big deal growing up. How good you're doing in school, you know. You better do good because when we see grandma, she's gonna ask you how you're doing. But you know, I make light of that, but it actually was a big deal for me. I loved my grandma so much, and it made me so proud. And then life just got complicated as time went on. I had a lot more things going on at home that were stressing me out, you know. And then, like I said, high school, I just hit this big period of stage fright where I just stopped going. I couldn't show up. I was getting too much anxiety. I won't go into too much detail because, like I said, I don't want to get too serious about it. But yeah, like anxiety, depression, social anxiety is a big one. I struggled a lot. And the pharmaceuticals they gave me never helped. They always backfired. That's a story for a different day. But yeah, so high school was kind of a shit show. I ended up dropping out early because I got pregnant at 17, the end of my 17th year. Had my baby when I was 18. I tried to go to the alternative school because I did not fit in with the whitewashed preppy vibe of that big high school, and I was bullied by preps, by the goths, by everybody, I swear to you. And then so I was like, I'll go to the alternative, and I didn't fit in there either. It was a lot for me to have eyes on me to be pregnant too, so I dropped out. A lot of this is like, yeah, stories for another day. Took a while for me to find myself. It took a long time. I was quiet because I was shy and I was a people pleaser, so it was easy for me to go along with what others wanted. So I already yapped enough. I forgot to start with a quote. My quote today is from Dr. Seuss, and it's been my favorite for as long as I can remember. Probably since I've been posting on like Zanga. But it's be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. And I recently came across that quote again, and it warmed my heart because I do put myself out there a lot on social media. The YouTube is new for me. This podcast is going to be super new for me, but I've been publicly posting on social media for about 10 years. I'm not going to get into all the details about me having babies because that's a very long story. We'll just say at 18 I had my first kid. That guy was abusive and mean, so we left that guy. And then I had 2 more beautiful kids with another man that was not so great. And at that point, I was still living in Kansas, and my mother offered to let me go back to college. She was going to pay for me to go back to college because she knows that I love education and I had bigger dreams. But I was so sad in Kansas and did not feel like I fit there. I asked her to move me to Colorado because right in my 20s, right after I had my kids, I finally found a group of people that had like this same mindset. Like I started smoking weed, I found out about reggae, and I found out that, you know, there were more spiritual humans out there and people with different beliefs, not wrapped around like the Bible Belt where I was. And yeah, from a very young age, from the start of using cannabis, I knew that it was my medicine. I thought about going to school for botany, but really I wanted to get out of Kansas, and I think I needed to grow. So I moved to Colorado, like everyone was doing at the time when weed got legalized. And I know that I had like so many people. I had friends that would move there and then move back, you know? So I knew that my little town of friends watching me on social media were just waiting for me. Like, when is she gonna end up back in Kansas? When is she gonna flop? But I went out there. My uncle told me about this rad fucking dispensary called The Farm. Shout out. I think they're still there in Boulder. And I found a lovely woman there. And she ended up being our babysitter for a while when we first moved out there. And then one day she said, I know you're interested in cannabis. I know that you want to work with the plants, but we're hiring at the dispensary right now. I tell you, I was never the cool kid. Like I said, I could never get the jobs at the mall that I applied for, you know, so I'm thinking, okay, sure. But I applied. I knew not a whole lot about cannabis, just that I had the enthusiasm to learn about it because I always wanted to learn about it so that I could educate people on it respectfully. And now I am to that point. But going back to that, moved to Colorado, got that job, worked dispensary up front for about 6 months, worked in harvest for about 2 years, did some of the oil facility filling cartridges. And then I did a little bit of lab work near the end, lab testing facility. That was very interesting. So that was very exciting. Then I always had Oregon in my sights. One of my best friends growing up, the only girl I ever smoked weed with, our plan was to move, you know, I moved to Colorado, she moved to another state, and our plan was to meet in Oregon eventually. And that was just like, to me, when we were talking about it, was just like this silly little dream. Like, yeah, I'm gonna end up on the West Coast, sure. But yeah, I had a, you know, pretty big life-changing event in Colorado. I left my ex. I was a single mom for 2 years. Started talking to someone that lives in Oregon. Moved to Oregon, up to the North Coast in Astoria. And for lack of, I don't want to say I got stuck in retail, but I did no research before I moved to Oregon. I was just like, oh, the coast was pretty when I visited. Let's go there. So I ended up running a shop out there and being a purchasing manager for 5 years. Yes, found my people out here, made a lot of friends. I made a lot of friends in the industry right before my life went to shit again. Yeah, left another toxic human, and then moved to Southern Oregon. Here I am, bam. My goal was always to be on a farm. You know, it took 11 years. If you would have told me back then it was going to take 11 years to get to my goal, I probably would have told you to fuck off, you know, and I would have stressed and worried the whole time and probably been frustrated. But I'm not mad about it now. I feel like everything I've learned up until that point has gotten me here. I will say also, before I made my decision to move to Colorado, I did also briefly think about doing radio broadcasting because I, at that point, didn't have enough confidence to be on camera, but I still considered myself funny. I still, you know, wanted to put myself out there. But again, I was like, I'm in Kansas. What am I gonna do with radio broadcasting in Kansas? And like, my soul was just dying every day I woke up. And there's times when I've thought about doing video editing. That was always something that I was interested in. you know, but it takes living life just to realize what your purpose is. I always wanted to be seen. I always wanted to put out a message, but I didn't know what that message was, you know? You have to really just let things happen. You just have to live life. I'm gonna find out later if that's okay to do on YouTube, but I am contemplating whether I should openly smoke on this or not, but honestly, I have so much anxiety and that's what weed helps with. But it just got me off track. Yeah, my purpose. Not only did I struggle with depression and anxiety, was also diagnosed with CPTSD in my mid-20s. And I don't want to go into detail about that right now either, because that's a whole nother episode. That's a lot to unpack. But I will say that I did struggle with pharmaceuticals in high school because they always made me sick. And it does get kind of upsetting when you try things and it doesn't work. So cannabis has saved my life. Cannabis gives me the confidence that I don't normally have. It slows my thoughts, and it really gives me patience for myself when I don't have patience for myself. That is the biggest thing. Growing up where you don't fit in, growing up in an environment where you couldn't necessarily use your voice, and then having relationships where you definitely couldn't use your voice, I really lost myself. I really, really lost myself. And every time I'd lose my voice, I'd promise myself that it wasn't going to happen again. But guess what? That shit happened. Because like I said, once I decide I'm loyal to someone, I am so fucking loyal. And I tend to blindly follow. You know, you get comfortable letting someone lead. And then near the end of it, I never even recognize myself after this shit. So I'm single now. I've been single for about 2 years, and it's been the first time in my life I've had this space to explore who I am. I did 6 years of therapy that actually helped me more than I ever thought. And I hope that this generation and generations to come continue to find the importance of therapy instead of mocking it, because if you feel like you need help but you're not quite sure what you need help on, like, that's what they're there to help you facilitate. And also the validation that you get from it is so refreshing. Like, you don't understand how much validation you need until you get it. And then I definitely was the person that lived with the mentality like, I don't want to tell a stranger my shit, but to be honest, it's actually a little bit easier. Just trust them. Just trust them. I think, like, every time I showed up, I would, like, roll my eyes, and, like, even during my session sometimes just felt like it was fucking pointless, but it wasn't. I thought that I'd always struggle with the past and with the images and all that shit. You know, I thought that it was just stuck in there, but I did finally take out a lot of the bad shit. Now I have room for good shit. And that was overwhelming, you know, at first. But then I realized, like, I had a blank page finally in my mind to start over. And I could start decorating that page however I want. So yeah, the last couple years, super introspective, finding myself. And it's really brought me back to my core on who I am and what I want to do, because I love working with cannabis, but I still feel like I need to give out more. There's more for me to offer the world. And growing up somewhere you don't fit in, you feel really fucking lonely. And moving away is exciting, and you definitely do find your people. I'm very fucking blessed. I have, like, a solid network of people from Colorado specifically, and I love all of you. But it's very lonely when you move away from what you know. And right when I got comfortable in Colorado, I moved away from that. 5 years on the coast, got comfortable, moved away from that. It's very lonely. And I was embarrassed to say that at first, because we make the word lonely seems so ugly. But we're all humans and we are definitely made to connect, you guys. Isolation helps a little bit with healing, but we all need people to connect, and my social media has always helped me, genuinely. Always genuinely helped me, for sure. I've gone through so many stages in my life. I've been, posting on socials for about a decade, and it makes me feel less lonely, okay? And there are bad things about social media, but there are very good things. I just focus on the positive. I put my energy into things I want to see. I only keep people on there that I appreciate. I'm finding my people. And I'm so excited to do this podcast. I know that I just seem like such an amateur right now, but I've always started every big journey fucking terrified. It's like looking at a pool right before you jump in, you're about to get fucking shocked and you just have to fucking jump. So here we are, I'm jumping in, and we'll see where it goes, you guys. I feel like I've yapped enough. I'm still trying to figure out how long they should be, but I figure 20 minutes is good to catch your attention. And like I said, I am planning on it being a little more funny, a little more lighthearted. But yeah, I'm getting out the nerves. So judge me if you want, but here I am. Like I said, everything I've started before in the past, I always felt like an amateur. I always felt silly or like an imposter, but I'm just gonna talk to the camera like a million people are watching already. Actually, and if that makes me vomit, I'll just talk to it like nobody's fucking watching, because honestly, on my social media, I'm like, no one's fucking watching anyway, so it doesn't really matter, right? So if I fail quietly. But, if you guys are watching, hopefully you keep watching. I'm going to do my best to post every week. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself, but I do want to try to, maybe get a few videos set up and then post those all at once. But if you've been listening and you're still listening, thank you so fucking much. I love all of you already. I don't even care who you are. Wish me luck, guys. We got this.